We are back and ready to kick off our second semi-final of the day, and it is going to be Jarla versus Bunnyhoppor, and it's going to be another intense series, honestly, because there's a lot to play for. It's a spot in the finals, of course, and then in the final match, we have that spot for the World Championships up for grabs. But both these players are just maybe two of the best we've even got in the European Grandmasters, and we are going to see a Demon Hunter ban and a Warrior ban, so something a little bit different for this series, Soto.
Yeah, and consistent with what Jarla has done with his lineup throughout the weekend. Same strategy he employed against Swids yesterday. And looking at his lineup, you can kind of see a little bit of sense behind it because, of course, he is doing something just a little bit different. He does have that Galakron Warlock in place of the more commonly seen now Quest Warlock, which he's even tinkered with the build a little bit and brought Abyssal Summoner into it, which I do really like. It's just a single copy right now, but I wonder even if we might see this deck come back into the metagame with maybe a double Abyssal Summoner build being run. He's gone down to one Sacrificial Pact, which is also fairly common these days after the nerf. Not really useful against Demon Hunter or in mirror matches. It's just that little burst of health off one of your own tokens most of the time. So I like the way that he's put the deck together, and certainly with the struggles that we've seen from some players in certain matchups with the Quest Warlock, I think players can put together a pretty strong argument as to why they don't feel comfortable with bringing Quest Warlock. So it's a deck that I've kept questioning week after week after week, but it's the same argument as Silvername and Mage, right? And even more so because, you know, it would have been cruel, so I didn't present the counter argument, but you could say that actually Silvername's season hasn't actually been that strong. He's here now winning the matches that mattered, but he had a decent performance early on and, you know, scraped his way into Division A, but he had a very poor showing in Division A.
Right.
He was good enough to make it through into playoffs, whereas Jarla, on the other hand, as many times as I want to question, you know, why he's playing Galakron Warlock when it seems to have left the meta entirely, has been absolutely crushing it throughout the entire season. And not just throughout this entire season, throughout every season of Hearthstone Grandmasters up until this point.
Yeah, it's been really, really impressive overall. And again, it gets to the point as it was almost bound to do with the top four. Is I'd be happy with any of these players going through. But if the final is Silvername versus Jarla, I'm honestly struggling to even like selfishly pick a favorite. You know what I mean? I think I'd just be hyped for whoever wins, because I think that would be it would be crazy to see either of these players at the World Championships. It would be really great. So let's see how this one plays out. The Bunnyhoppor is going to be on the top on his Highlander Hunter, going up against Jarla's Galakron Warlock. Again, we see the Abyssal Summoner there, just on the left there for Jarla. So that's like the one, I guess, I won't say tech card, but deck evolution for this Galakron. But on the other hand, Bunnyhoppor does have access to a pretty decent opening with coin, double 2-drop if he wants to. Or he could just take this a little bit slower. Either way, he's going to be able to get some early damage in against Jarla.
Yeah, I do. I'm a big fan of Abyssal Summoner. I think it's a remarkably strong card. I was just having this conversation with Abar, our producer, former caster for GM as well, former seasonal championship qualifier as well, all around Hearthstone extraordinaire, about the Kartut build of the Quest Warlock, and how, like, for me, like, I even just like having Abyssal Summoner against aggro more than I do Kartut Defender, just to be able to actually make some big boards in the mid game a lot of the time. And he responded and just said, like, yeah, I think, you know, low key Abyssal Summoner is just the reason why you play Quest Warlock. The card is just that good. So definitely like to see it coming into the Galakron Warlock build here from Jarla as well.
Yeah, I did follow that conversation, and then got laughed at when I suggested, well, you can play 4 of those things to a certain extent with Camera Ted.
And rightly so, Raven.
Yeah, neither you or I, but I appreciate that idea. Just wait, one day I'll have the last laugh. But for now, we are seeing the Zephyrus follow up from the Fairy Dragon, which again just makes sense. It might not be the most powerful Zephyrus you're ever going to see, but it is just a strong 2-drop to put some pressure on into another 2-drop to just push as much damage as possible. Because although it does not, Jarla's deck does not have the raw level of healing, I would say, that the Quest Warlock has, mainly due to those Aranasses with the help of Plot Twist. But it can heal, so I think putting on a lot of pressure quickly, especially with this curve from Bunnyhoppor, is a good way to maybe end this game a little bit quickly and not have to worry too much about those big Galakron turns late game.
Yeah, and with that Animal Companion pick of the Zephyrus, this hand became a thing of beauty, at least until it was sullied by that Grand Slam
How
coming in from
dare
the right-hand
you.
side. Because he is just a 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. All we needed to do was pick up that animal companion and put it over on the other side of the hand, and it would have been an absolute work of art.
Look, I'll take your criticism and laughter of my Kenrithad ideas. Never question the Grand Slam. That is where I draw the line.
You could hear the genuine anger in your voice then. That was actually quite threatening.
Oh, Bunnyhoppor, the absolute hunter god. Rolling the Hofer, of course. Is this like a very odd double? It can't be double trade. It can't be, right? It's mad. For a second, I decided to consider it because I had to try and do my job, but it can't be double trade, surely. It is way too much damage. Yes, there's Plague of Flames. Yes, there's trades and coils and such, but so what? Yeah. Yes, Bunnyhoppor, I like it. Because if your opponent plagues, well, they have to press Plague, right? They have to play the card. They're probably not going to have a strong follow-up afterwards, and you didn't just miss a ton of damage.
Yeah, completely agree. Especially with just how strong the curve is right now. Like, I think that plays into it as well. If your curve wasn't as powerful as it was, you might need to protect this board and play around some removal options. But the reality is you just don't. This board gets blown up. Great. Start developing more minions and play out the rest of your hand just in order from the left-hand side, because that's all you have to do now this game.
I wonder.
Nothing really looks too good here either. Because on one hand, you could say Jarla might actually want to Sacrificial Pact one of these imps to recover some of this insane amount of damage he's taken already. But if he does that, it's less options to trade. He does have the coil to make up for some of that as well. He's choosing to Veiled Worshipper instead, okay. Gives Bunnyhoppor at least some idea of what this hand looks like for Jarla. And don't get me wrong, I'm not saying if he knows exact cards, but he's got an idea that's not good. Is it, right? Like, because it's not a play that Jarla wants to make, just play a Veiled Worshipper that does nothing.
Yeah, and there were several options for Jarla that turn, as you were saying. Like, if he wanted to use the Sacrificial Pact, that reduced some of his trading power, because obviously he can't trade the minion if he's eating it. But he could have then paired that with the Mortal Coil. So he wouldn't have needed one of those 1/1s to trade to achieve the same effect, essentially. Would have involved leaving up the Fairy Dragon and killing the Zephyrus instead, which is a slight downside in its own right. But it also then means if you don't draw like exactly second Dragonblight Cultist off the Mortal Coil, that you're not really doing anything else with your turn that turn either.
It's just tap and hope, right? That's the problem. And then imagine this board, except just without the 5/4, right? Yes, Jarla would have a bit more health, but who cares if you're just going to get hit just as hard the turn after? Well, you played one, may as well play the other as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, problem then is these are very important tools in the deck. This is one of the fastest decks, if not the fastest Galakron deck at invoking 2/4, the most consistent Galakron deck at invoking 2/4, largely in part to these Veiled Worshippers that come down after you've invoked twice, which you generally do in the early game, to then find you those other options without either of those drawing any cards. Jarla now might actually have a problem finding any late game value. He does have a large chunk of it in his hand already, but that Galakron is looking pretty hopeless right now.
Yeah, the only problem is finding value later doesn't matter if you're going to be dead already, does it?
Nope.
And that's the big issue. Jarla, I think, just needs to do something. You can't just pass or even tap, because that would take too much damage. And honestly, he does have Abyssal Summoner as a follow-up, and then he does have a Sacrificial Pact. Not that he should necessarily use it on the demon he summons, but I just mean he has Taunt, and he has some level of heal. The ultimate desperation play. Maybe we do see it. But he has some level of heal, and he has a Taunt plan. The only problem is this Corrosive Breath is just going to help Bunnyhoppor even more push damage, puts Jarla to 4.
Yeah, I love this play. I wanted to bring this up because obviously I've been memeing about just play your cards in order from the left this entire time. I think this is the first turn where Bunny truly had something to think about. And I love the diversion here for a couple of reasons. Firstly, it weirdly makes your board bigger than just playing big old Whirlpool Curve, because you're removing the 5/2, so that means only one of your minions are able to get traded down here. And then secondly, you shut off the threat of Crazed Netherwing, which is one of the cards that you are scared of, by just doing that extra damage immediately. So that means if Jarla was going to Crazed Netherwing, he would deal the damage to himself and just be dead to hero power. So he's completely locked out several of Jarla's options to be able to contest this board state.
Yeah, and this Abyssal Summoner just about holding on for Jarla right now. Bunnyhoppor does have the Varanus, and I think, honestly, after just looking at his options, I do like the Varanus. Just get rid of the Demon, put a big minion in the way. Yes, your minion dies to the board, but then the whole board's been traded off, and then just carry on with Tiamat, carry on with Hero Powers maybe, carry on trying to get to that Nagran Slam, a little bit far away for now. But I think overall, anything but this Varanus is just not good enough.
It's funny that you mention Hero Powers, because I think that was the other play, right? You just bet the farm on Hero Power if you feel like that's the highest percentage win rate, but it probably isn't.
It just isn't, yeah. Still Nether Breath's in this list. It's not like a Galakron Warlock doesn't play Nether Breath, for example, or any other ways of heal. The heal exists, right?
I think if there was like Evasive Feywing Hero Power or like Primordial Explorer Hero Power or something like that available that turn, then Bunny might have given it a bit more thought. But yeah, it was Hero Power Pass if you wanted to actually put your opponent to 2 that turn.
And I quickly glanced at the Whelp Hero Power, but obviously, oh wait, it's 6 mana, it doesn't matter, right? And that's the issue. Yeah,
apparently
just
you glanced at it too
with
quickly, Raven.
I will act as your scape.
I'll wait. Give me a few seconds. This has to be double trade, though, right?
Huge deal, though, for Jarla to finally be picking up these Invoke cards. Not in the least because it activates that Sacrificial Pact that's been starved in his hand for quite some number of turns since that very, very difficult turn on turn 4, I believe it was, where he chose not to use it to instead clear down the Fairy Dragon.
Hello, Jarla, not going to go for the tap.
Oh.
How do you like Tiamat, Wind Fury, Rush?
I wonder.
Do you need it to have Wind Fury? Is my question.
Well, he's seen Coil. He's seen the Sacrificial Pact, so of course it's not a Sacrificial Pact target, there's only one in the deck. But he's not seen Plague yet.
Right, so you want to. So your reasoning for Wind Fury is that so you can double trade and remove Plague of Flames as a removal option, or an easy removal option, I should say.
And then if there's another Coil, fine. But if there's Netherwing, well, okay, great, you've got Prime game. I don't know. I think that, of course, there's benefits to this. Obviously, just having the more health. But I do think, and yes, I can see the Plague in hand, but I do think there weren't tons of punishes for this being a 6-1 right now.
Yeah, you make a compelling argument. Sick. Absolutely nailed it, Jarla. Just you wait for 2 more turns.
So we can actually see that just Bran Go would be pretty strong right now.
Yeah.
Also, after seeing the Plague of Flames.
Yep.
It is off curve, so he doesn't get hero power or anything, but I think so what? You get 8 damage to face. Your opponent's only on 14. And again, outside of Plague, there's not that many combos of cards that get there, right? Just a reminder, Jarla doesn't run a Twisted Nether. He doesn't run a Caladan. It's not like the removals tons more than the Quest Warlock. I think you could argue it's less, but those Plagues are the reason that this deck is a little bit different here. But is this going to be enough? Go to 15 if he just Alexes himself, but then realistically, how does he win?
Right. Alternatively, he can just put big Kronk's Taunt in the way. Hope that at least tanks the 8.
Just gotta do a quick check. Okay, yep. Bunnyhoppor is not playing Kill Command in his list.
Okay.
And that's definitely a weird card at the moment. There really are. Just some people are playing it, some aren't. So, but you definitely have to be aware of it, because 5 damage from hand is something you need to know about right now. I think you might be right with just the taunt. It's just the best chance. Hope the King Crush has to tank it, and then you've got to hope there's no 2 extra damage in hand.
Right.
It's a lot of hoping, but it's just the way it is sometimes.
Yeah, I think heavily influenced by the fact that I could see the hands. I was sort of struggling to build an unbiased opinion that turn because I can see the Faceless Corruptor in hand, which of course is a card that punishes the taunt that wouldn't punish the healing. But of course there are just sources of additional damage, of just Stormhammer or whatever else that can just come through, be able to push additional damage that would deal with the healing situation. So I think either way, there was about an equal number of punishes that come down, maybe even less of doing it the way that Jarla did it. It just so happens that we were staring at the hand that punished that decision for Jarla.
Yeah, it did look like a close one. It did look like Jarla was maybe getting there. Being able to stabilize, even with the insane opening from Bunnyhoppor, but it was not quite good enough. And it's one of the strengths of Highland Hunter. Not only is it just the early game consistency with how heavily the deck is built towards that 1 to 3 mana slot, but it's the fact that the second you unlock Bran and you have it in hand, your game plan becomes so clear at that point. You either Bran is just such a big threat, say on a small board, that you just play it and start pushing damage and make your opponent answer it, or you can use your other cards to set Bran up for like either lethal or just those moments where you can put in the most damage. So just having access to that early enough in a game towards that turn 7 just makes the deck really just shine, honestly.
Yeah, there is a pretty unfortunate pan out for Jarla overall to hit essentially 0 power off of his Galakron 2 minions. That's what really unlocked the door for that Bran to be able to go through, right? Like, I'm sure Dynatoma Bran Go Face would have been a fairly likely play regardless of which demons came down, unless they were specifically taunts. But in that scenario, hitting double Dormant meant that Jarla had no way to contest the board, right? If he was able to actually, a best case scenario, just trade down the Bran straight up, and then, Alex Straza himself back up to 15 or drop the big taunt or whatever else it would have been. Like, that is a world of difference than just having absolutely nothing in play to contest the big dino.
Yeah, of course, especially considering I mentioned there was no kill command in the list and Corrosive Breath was already played. Yep. So the actual just burst damage post-Bran from hand, especially before turn 10, before Nagran Slam, there wasn't actually that much outside of a Stormhammer. So, yeah, that could have worked. But as you said, the Dormant minions were really just the big problem there for Jarla. But let's move on to our next game. Bunnyhoppor going for this Secret Rogue here with the 2 questions. So this is a list I'm a big fan of, at least. Although I will say, Sottle, the more the weekend has gone on, the more I'm trying to work out where I put Spy Mistress in this list when I play it. Because that card, I think, is just worthwhile. Right now, I've been fully convinced. And Jarla going to be on this Galakron Warlock once again.
Yeah, I'm struggling right now, Raven. I was playing some Rogue last night, possibly this morning. These things blur together when you're me. It's very arbitrary. I want to get Beaming Sidekick and Spy Mistress into my Rogue, and I just can't do it. There's not enough card slots. You just can't make it happen.
I've got 2 words that you'll be very familiar with.
Okay.
And I'm going to build this up.
Okay.
Imagine an expansion's just released.
Yeah.
What deck do you build? Tempo Rogue.
Tempo Rogue.
There you go. Yeah. So that's what you've got to build. Ignore any other. Maybe ignore Galakron.
Oh, I'm cutting the Galakron cards. I'm cutting the Galakron cards. Right, this makes sense.
Just build the Tempo Rogue. The 1 drops, the 2 drops, the 3 drops, done.
All right, incoming top 100 legend tweet tonight. Watch out for it. It's coming.
It's promised you now, guys. So, make sure to tweet at him if he doesn't commit to that one. I do think that the Galakron Warlock does have a easier go of it and a more likelihood of executing the plan number 1 here for Jarla, of build up your Invoke, use Galakron, and then Alex and kill them, right? The sort of level 1 plan with this deck, because Rogue, outside of maybe an earlier Question Adventurer, just does not go that fast at the moment, does it? And I think it will give Jarla enough time here to assemble something a little bit stronger than what we saw last game.
Yeah, and we've talked at length, both ourselves here in Europe and the other casters in the other regions, about how Rogue struggles to deal with the card Dragon Queen Alexstrasza when it comes down, and why, you know, decks, whether be they Highlander decks or be they heavy cycle decks, heavy late game decks that just naturally play a Dragon Queen Alexstrasza in their deck for the late game, like Quest Warlock, how that card is just such a powerful tool to have against Rogue. Well, Warlock kind of has that effect in their Galakron, where it plays a very like Dragon Queen Alexstrasza size board when the Galakron gets fully invoked. And then on top of that, there's actually also just a Dragon Queen Alexstrasza that can come down after that. So if it goes like really, really late in the game, it's very hard for Rogue to keep up with all of the consistent pressure that Warlock can heap out. So definitely do think you have to establish yourself as the aggro as the Rogue in this matchup. Because if it goes hyper late, the threats are just going to come too thick and too fast for you in the hyper late game.
And so far, nothing's looking too aggressive from the way I'm looking at it. Subtle. Bunnyhoppor here. Does have a secret and a Pharaoh Cat to get cooking this turn, but honestly, there's no Quest Adventure, there's no Van Cleef, there's nothing to really overly threaten Jarla this early in the game. And just look at the difference, of course, between this and the last game, right? I feel like Jarla was already on 15 health at this point, or something, whereas now he's got a lot more time and also better options. He has the 2 Dark Skies, worst case scenario, but also just having the invoke cards that are a bit more playable instead of having the Veiled Worshippers he had in his hand last game.
Right. Don't know what you're talking about. You could get super aggressive that turn. Backstab your own Grandmummy to push the 1 with the Pharaoh Cat and then drop Evil Miscreant. Ooh. Call that play the Gallon. It's the combination of Grandmummies dying and buffing minions and pushing the 1. You'll only get half of that if you didn't watch America's last night, Raven. Just so you know.
I did not. I unfortunately have to sleep on a fairly regular sleeping schedule.
I know. What an amateur.
I would say I bet I'm awake before you, but not always necessarily true either.
No.
Although I do not sleep in. Dragon Blight, really good pickup there, honestly, for Jarla. Means he can save his coin. Have to coin out the Maniac if he felt pushed to do something a little bit bigger this turn. And again, like you said, Warlock, due to having the cheap invokes and a combination of Life Tap and Veiled Worshipper, means it does get to those invokes very quickly. Jarla, even if he plays on curve, already having, what, 3 out of 4? It's like,
Yeah.
he's not even done anything yet. So what's going on?
Ooh. Titanic Lackey, very nice here. Evolve Lackey shows potential as well, always does, on Evil Miscreant. Get yourself a nice Replicator-tron.
Yeah. I wonder if how many players like read up on or tried to work out the rules of that card after seeing it the other yesterday.
Well, like I was quite surprised because obviously there was a lot of discussion about that afterwards because Huntrace kind of messed up the mechanics a little bit. So like players were talking, explaining how it worked. He didn't really understand the wording of the card because it uses neighbor instead of adjacent, which kind of is a standard in Hearthstone, kind of isn't. There was a whole thing. We talked about it extensively. I was kind of surprised that people weren't used to that happening because I feel like if you've played Rogue, you evolve Evil Miscreant a lot of times over the course of your Hearthstone career, right? So I felt like most people would have had that come up before. I was kind of surprised that like so few people had run into it.
Yeah, like I said, I'd literally never seen that minion on a board that I have personally seen in the game of Hearthstone up until yesterday.
Surprised me.
Here though, this is one benefit for the Rogue in this matchup and for Bunnyhoppor is it's kind of awkward to get a good Plague of Flames off against Rogue, isn't it? Because their board often looks like this.
Yep.
And
that's where you're hoping your Dark Skies comes into play, but that's why I got so excited about that Titanic Lackey, because after the trade down means that Bunnyhoppor can very easily break past that 10 health barrier on board.
I wonder if he just... Oh, I don't know. Even if this cleared the board, the fact that it's Dark Sky, almost Dark Sky's pass, I'm not even sure whether that would feel great for Jarla. It clears the board, don't get me wrong, it's not bad, but then Bunnyhoppor didn't really commit too much to this board anyway. It's just like that weird thing Rogue seems to do all the time, isn't it? Of just throw bits of minions on the board every single turn of the game until they stick. And just do odd bits of damage that start to stack up. It's very, very awkward to deal with, and it's why I actually, even though this is just throwing the Shield of Galakrond into a poison minion, it looks bad. I actually like this from Jarla, honestly.
Yeah, I like it too. I think he just needs to start softening up the health totals on these boards as best as he possibly can. Or alternatively, just delay time for Crazed Netherwing and a dragon to find its way into hand so he can address this board state more accurately. There's also one Rain of Fire in his deck, I believe, that is massive here.
Does Bunnyhoppor trade the other way? Okay. I was wondering whether he put all the one attack minions in instead. Do the Grand Mummy last, which then buffs either the shield or the... If you wanted to force it on the ambusher, he could have.
Choose soon.
Sure. He still has a lot of protection against small AoE this way, right? Like, even up to Crazed Netherwing, he's just playing a whole new 4-5. And he still has the Grand Mummy Reborn to go off as well. So I don't think he has to be too precious about it.
Yeah, for me it was just, is the wider board worth this ambusher dying to anything? I guess it was the question I was asking myself.
Right.
If I was putting myself in that seat.
Once again, this is so much damage being represented against the Jarla. You said that he probably should have a fair deal more time in this matchup than he did against Hunter. He is under serious threat of dying even earlier against Rogue than he did against Hunter.
Yeah, most importantly here, no dragon as well means that he can't even Moag Netherbreath to just heal up. Because if he could, then it would be a lot easier, right?
Right.
But now he might have to just go for Dark Skies. Just reduce the board down a bit.
So how much damage is he actually looking at? 6, 8, 10, 11? Because there is the option to just draw cards and say, that always finds me a dragon, and then next turn I can stabilize. But even then, he doesn't have enough for like Dark Skies, Moag, and Netherbreath
Yeah, he can't
on the
do it all,
following turn.
yeah. And that's why I think I like the Dark Skies now.
Just doesn't even really do anything though. Kills some 1/1s and 2/1s.
That's kind of what he's getting beaten up by, though.
That is true.
I don't know.
Those are currently the minions that are in play, and they do need to be killed. You are correct. Like, that's what I mean, right? Like, nothing happened.
That's 9. And even this, I always forget the name of this minion, so I'm sorry. The one on the far left, the Reborn. Even this is going to be a pain to deal with for Jarla if Bunnyhoppor chooses to play it this turn.
Raven, your presence offends me. It's called Ancestral Guardian.
I knew it was Ancestral something.
Options.
Now there's just a Witchy Lackey for the Shield of Galakrond too.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Or maybe the Miscreant?
Even the Miscreant, yeah.
Yeah, I was just going to say, can't work out which one I like more.
4/2 to 6-drop or 1/1 to 4-drop. Sounds pretty close in my head.
I think I'd go for the 6-drop because there's a lot of high rolls with the 6 cost, right?
Yeah, that's fair.
So I think that's what pushes it for me, although it's close stat-wise, I think. And not really one of them.
No.
Still, though, it's just another reasonable sized, if not good, great sized threats from Bunnyhoppor. And if Jarla's obviously been struggling to remove this board, then just, make it worse.
Your presence offends me.
I was going to say, I was surprised to see Bunny leading towards Faceless Lackey there at the start. It just felt like an Ancestral Guardian turn to me.
I will say I'm a lot less
what he ended
upset
up going
now.
with.
Because when you said your presence offends me, I thought you were just being mean because I didn't peg you to know all the voice lines. So I didn't realize that was its voice line. Now it's been played, I heard it, I was like, oh, okay, it's just saying the voice line. I thought you were just like, your presence offends me because you forgot the name of one card. I was like, wow.
I just sort of let it fly because I thought that, that was a cooler way of doing it. But yeah, I was half tempted to be like, yeah, who thought I would be making a card voice line joke right now?
Not me.
No.
Your presence offends me.
There is lethal potential
Yep.
for Bunnyhoppor.
He gets a Kobold.
come from?
Could get 2 Rush Lackeys.
Yep, 2 Rush Lackeys. Actually, just 1
Get
Rush
spell.
Lackey because he has the Shadow Step. That's it. Just
Oh, wow,
rips
there
the
it is.
Kobold immediately.
And you're completely right. I actually wasn't even looking at the Shadow Step. More than enough damage here from Bunnyhoppor. And honestly, in a very strange game of Hearthstone, Bunnyhoppor takes game number 2. That is not how I really foresee and have seen that matchup get played out. Bunnyhoppor just always just keeping the board full of bits of minions, these 1-drops, 2-drops, ticking around for a while, and it was just pushing enough damage. And the big deal there, which we saw up until the very end of the game, the Nether Breath was in hand all along, no dragon to pair with it. And not only was there no dragon for the heal for the Nether Breath, if it was a Nether Wing, that game would have looked very different because he would have been able to just clear all of that, get the Nether Breath down as well, secure the board, and at least continue into the late game. But Bunnyhoppor just didn't give Jarla the chance.
No, exactly the point I was going to make is that, you know, I'm trying to be objective here. I'm trying not to be results oriented. We're watching Galakron Warlock lose. I'm not going to get on my high horse about it because genuinely, I think Jarla's had a bad run in both of those games, and I think he drew the wrong half of his deck in each of the matchups, right? Like he had Crazed Netherwing and a bunch of, you know, clunky stuff against the Hunter, but he didn't have the big healing burst, which is really what he needed to stabilize in the late game. Whereas against the Rogue, he had some healing options, but he didn't have the Crazed Netherwing, which is the card that he needed to be able to blow through. Whereas against the Hunter, the Crazed Netherwing, the self-damage was about as valuable as the removal would have been on board anyway. But one Crazed Netherwing in that game against Rogue would have basically solved it for Jarla because even if he was, you know, at 16, 13 health or whatever, he clears the vast majority of the board. He went down to 10, let's say. Well, the next turn, he then spikes right the way back up again with the Moog Nether Breath that he has in hand. So he was really not that far away, even though it looked like it of stabilizing that game. And that's not even mentioning the Rain of Fire that he could have drawn at any given point to completely just blow up all of those 1/1s and 2/1s that I was saying. Like, it just doesn't feel like it's worth dark skiesing these minions because... you know, you have so many more efficient ways to do it. But yeah, here we are. And the reality of the series now is that Bunnyhoppor has 3 attempts to win a single game of Hearthstone with Pain Warrior.
Yeah, one of the consistently highest win rate decks I think we've ever seen in Hearthstone, honestly. Especially when considering those win rates we're taking are from Grandmasters, like the best level of play, and as close as I think we're really ever going to get true win rates, if that makes sense. You know, if games were played perfectly, we could work out that the matchup stats. It's as close as we're going to get. We've got the best players playing these matches against other extremely strong players. So yeah, if I was Jarla, I would be not favouring my chances in this series, but I probably would be queuing Hunter. So I agree with that pick overall, but seriously, this is looking rough. Bunnyhoppor, as you said, only needs to win that one game, and if he does this, will be facing Silvername in the finals.
Love the Terran keep against Hunter. Obviously, Corsair Cash is a given. You're holding on to that. But I do love the irritating board states that you can make in the early to mid game with Terran Gorefiend against Hunter. He's a very, very effective card. Obviously, you can just hit the absolute nuts with the egg off the top on turn 2 and just be in complete control of the game straight away. But I think even if it doesn't get to that, just a few small minions in the mid game inside of Terran Gorefiend can be extremely effective against Hunter.
Yeah, there's just no answer, is there? Current or recent builds of Hunter, although powerful because they do one thing and do that very, very well, they don't have access to the tricks that a lot of other classes do. You know, the removal, the stalls, and things like that. They don't really have access to any of that. So Jarla, of course, will be focusing on just chucking out as much damage as possible whilst keeping Bunnyhoppor's side of the board under control, which that Stormhammer, along with some dragons, will help with. The second Bunnyhoppor has a big, a big warrior turn, then already Jarla's going to be on the back foot.
Yes, he is. And that big warrior turn might just be coming sooner rather than later because Bunnyhoppor hits the 1 out of 3. The 33%er as opposed to the 67%er of hitting that Ankar off the Corsair Cash, which means he's now going to get actual genuine card draw off his weapon, which thins out of his deck and gets him closer to Battle Rages, to other tools that he can use to make his risky skippers that he draws as powerful as possible.
Got my great suggestion for this game, Sol? Coin diving Griffin, you've just seen him draw the weapon, and just say, I dare you.
Okay. Sure.
You're liking it, aren't you? You're secretly loving that suggestion.
I mean, I can't
That's
argue.
sick.
I can't argue with the logic of it. It's
Corsair
sound.
Cash, diving Griffin, let's go.
Yeah. I mean, you know, if you really want to concede the game to Warmall Challenger, I guess that's fine.
What? That's sick. Just 4 damage to a Warlord Challenger. That's awesome. What are you on about?
Yeah,
Brings its
okay.
health right down. Seriously, though, my main point being is Jarla, one, doesn't gain too much by playing, by cutting out the Stormhammer that turn, but also gains nothing, really, by cutting out the Primordial Explorer, right? Because he knows if Bunnyhoppor chooses to, he can kill it 100% of the time. Ivan Griffin, on the other hand, he would have had to pay with his 4 of his life.
What now?
Bunny here looks like he's just checking deck lists, considering implications of various cards. There is an argument for the Bomb Wrangler here, because Bomb Wrangler is one of the best cards to play alongside Terran Gorefiend. If you can get one value trade out of a Bomb Wrangler and then eat it up with that Terran, you're in business. I think even if Stormhammer comes down here and you're just left with a bomb on the board at the end of the turn, even that is a fairly attractive Terran on the follow-up.
Yeah, and a couple of levels to this weapon not being equipped is, one, the face damage just out of nowhere doesn't really have a huge impact on the outcome of this matchup. And most importantly, another reason I think Bunnyhoppor was glancing is Jarla plays a Swamp Ooze. And Jarla would, I'll say in almost every case, would not have Swamp Oozed on turn 2 if that was his only 2-drop, because he saw the Corsair Cash. So for all Bunnyhoppor knows, he could have it in hand, and does Bunnyhoppor want to get that oozed whilst only gaining, yes, the card draw, but then just like 3 damage to face against a full health hunter? I do, you know, because of all that, I do, and obviously what you said about Terran, I think this play was completely right here from Bunnyhoppor, and the damage to face would have been a bit of a waste.
No time for games.
I mean, even now, like you pointed out a little bit earlier, but okay, well that's just an even better draw. But even if this was just Bop Face and then Terran, it's actually still just a reasonable problem for Hunter. Like they're just sat there going, oh, that's annoying.
The level of fear and respect your opponent has to give to Terran Gorefiend as well when they're a deck that can't deal with it is enormous, because if they just leave it there and like, well, I can't deal with it, so I guess I'll just let it do its thing, and then suddenly Bloodsworn Mercenary comes into play, like, what then?
You just lose.
You know, like you just
lose.
Right.
Now though, well, saying why that draw is even better is now you can make the Terran that little bit scarier with a Sky Raider in it. It doesn't look like much now, but it will be a 2/3 once it comes out of the Terran.
Yeah. This is the danger, though, also of not getting on with this Ankar plan, is that he is reducing his card draw over time. He just drew a Sky Raider, which he would have drawn potentially from that Ankar anyway. So if he doesn't get on with his Ankar business soon, he might end up missing out on the card draw by drawing a lot of those pirates naturally. He is playing a 4-pirate list, double Risky Skipper, double Sky Raider, so he can afford to draw 1 and still get max value, which is the situation that we're in right now.
And I think with this Dread Corsair exactly as the pickup, this makes the Ankar much better for next turn now, right?
Yeah.
Ankar, a cheap Dread Corsair, go.
Instant 4 to the face. This man knows how to bomb.
Funnily enough, I think it's still just Fey Wing, go face. And hope that just as much as you have to respect Terran, Bunnyhoppor has to respect a Fey Wing on the board, especially with that Stormhammer equipped. Because any other diversion just looks like you're just losing a little bit slower. Like Griffin, to kill this, you just end the turn with your opponent still having a bigger board than you?
Yeah.
I don't think that can be the play.
Right, and you could say Griffin into the Terran and then smoke one of the minions, so there's not that much left on the board, but then you're giving up your entire Stormhammer without ever getting a Dragon proc out of it.
And also as well, Jarla still knows there's a buffed weapon in hand that Bunnyhoppor must surely want to be playing soon.
Yes.
Well, great. Yes, so it's double swing into that Fey Wing, by all means, is the thought pattern there. So I do fully agree with this play here with the Fey Wing. It's just the strongest thing Jarla can do, and isn't overreacting to a Terran, in which, if he did so, he would just end up further behind.
Jarla is letting out a very big sigh at the end of just about every turn he plays in the game of Hearthstone right now. Clearly not feeling like this series is going the way he wanted it to, and I think quite justified in that feeling as well from the way the cards have lined up.
I think that rogue game as well, it's just not how it really plays out, is it? It was definitely an odd one there in that previous game between Bunnyhoppor and Jarla.
Armor made to fit.
Well, here, I do think it's important in this matchup as the Hunter, although it's a very difficult matchup, it's important to still remember what your deck does, right? You play aggressive, you push damage, and you need to focus on that. Because if you try and remove the warrior game plan, or try and trade away, or try and play safe, you just let warrior do whatever it wants anyway, and then whenever warrior can do that, you're just going to lose even quicker.
I can only imagine that Bunnyhoppor must have some kind of specific read on Jarla's hand right now. I confess I've lost track of Jarla's mulligan, but was Primordial in the hand right at the beginning of the game by any chance?
It was.
You remember? So he might be specifically giving that card credit for being Acidic Swampoos.
So I was talking about coining it out, right?
Right, okay.
Victory is in my grasp.
Because otherwise, I'm finding some of these lines quite confusing.
Maybe here we're going to see Diving Griffin into the Armorsmith, and then the Zigzag plus Weapon Swing into the Warmore. Is that ever has to happen? Yeah, these are the unfun turns you have to do as Hunter sometimes, but it looks like he's going to put more level of respect onto getting extra swings out of this weapon, actually.
And I was curious to see whether there was a reaction upon seeing some of these held cards from Jarla from Bunnyhoppor's side, but there absolutely wasn't. Not that he is particularly well known for elaborate reactions to things that happen in Hearthstone. So now we get value from it. We're actually killing a juicy minion. It has to come down, right? Yep. There it is. Okay.
Yep. And the draws will start coming in. And also, as you mentioned, not only is it getting the Risky Skipper, drawing the Pirates, and so on, it's making your natural draws that little bit better, getting that little bit closer to Battle Rage, getting that little bit closer to Korkron, Grom, other weapons, and so on.
And that is potentially bad news if Bunny does have a fear of Acidic Swampoos, is that he drew the second Sky Raider, so he hasn't secured his Risky Skipper just yet. If he loses this weapon, he might just find himself out of gas. But we can see Acidic Swampoos is not something he's needed to be worried about this game.
Jarla's just running out of health as well. Because again here, the Varanus is actually just not too bad, right? It's not a bad draw. You can play it. Or not a bad play, sorry. You can play Varanus, swing into the taunt anyway. He has a 7/6, and the health on this Warmore challenge is brought all the way down to 1. Pretty good. The problem is, he takes 3 from the swing.
Yep.
There's 6 on board, with another 3 from the weapon.
Yep.
It's just too much damage, right? That's the biggest problem right now. It's just too much.
And one of those minions is a bomb when you're certain, actually certain, that your opponent can have Risky Skipper in their hand the next turn.
Right.
That's a problem.
I have no time for games.
Is it ever... Oh, no, it doesn't matter. It's just not good, is it? In this matchup, honestly, as Hunter, you need Warrior just not to do the big plays quite as quickly as Bunnyhoppor did here. So what, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9? Jarla on 12. And as you said, the guaranteed Risky Skipper.
Oh, that's not a card. It would have been if Varanus was not the turn.
The good thing here as well is he can play the risky... if it'll go down to... Yeah, if he goes face, Risky Skipper, Sky Raider, the Bloodboard Brute's still playable, right? So it'll be 3 minions damaged. He'll use 2 mana.
Mm-hmm.
So just so he can kill off the Varanus.
Well, the alternative is to play the other 3 minions instead. Blow up the bomb that you have.
Sure, Bomb Wrangler.
Blow up the bomb that you have and generate more bombs from the Bomb Wrangler and just try and set up immediate lethal, if not now, then next turn.
Yeah, he can also play the Bomb Wrangler first, right, and then Skyraid. Does that help? Skyraid and then maybe another Pirate to proc more bombs this turn.
Someone's gotta lead the charge.
Okay.
That's great.
Eat your flesh!
Yeah, just going to get the Bloodborne Brute down instead. Not going to go for anything too fancy. But again, there is only really Rotnest Drake that would be a strong answer to this. Or I guess Bran. But if either of those things happen, great. My opponent's not pushed any damage.
Right.
And they're on 7.
Right.
It's not a lot, is it?
Victory is in my grasp.
But it might just have to be, right? Nothing else works. There's no minion for Faceless Corruptor to do the work instead. Has to be Dino Trader. Oh, was that? Oh, Bloodsworn.
Bloodsworn.
So Risky Skipper, Bomb Wrangler, Bloodsworn seems pretty good.
Yeah, the problem with like Bloodsworn being your last minion though, when you do it like that, it's like you always feel like that's super exciting and you're going to blow up like 1,000,000 bombs, but it doesn't actually quite work like that when you do it in that particular order.
Right.
But still think it ends up being pretty powerful here.
Yeah, and honestly, Bunnyhoppor can face tank this this crush if he really wants to. He's absolutely fine.
That is indeed a luxury, isn't it?
Yeah, I see, and it's not even a. Oh well, what if this happened? Like, no, there's nothing that's going to really punish Bunnyhoppor for face tanking this.
He actually doesn't need to either, though, because he still draws his one remaining Risky Skipper off of this last.
Oh yeah,
swing.
he has one Risky Skipper, doesn't he? Left. I forgot about that.
So there might actually
For some reason, I feel like he played it last turn.
there might actually just be a close to guaranteed lethal setup this turn.
Well, like 50-50 between the brand.
Right. Yeah, I'm not sure if actually smacking.
Oh no, because
smacking the brand first with your weapon actually gave you better outs for lethal this turn.
like, both these bombs would have to do 1 to Bran each, right, for that to be bad. I'm using the word bad quite loosely here because is any outcome that bad for Bunnyhoppor here right now?
Right.
Because there's still bombs within the Wranglers, because again, there's no way for Hunter outside of a Zephyrus potential. There's no way for Hunter to deal with these Wranglers without generating bombs.
Yeah, and even then, like, if you talk about, like, what, Zephyrus Master Spell, well, then he's not killing the minions. They're still there. They still hit him. Like, these
Zephyrus,
minions...
Master Spell, Unleash the Hounds, 100 mana, why not?
Yeah. Somehow just generate an Innovate and a Plague of Death. They're easy.
Yeah.
Next
there you
game.
Go. Easy peasy.
Yeah.
But yeah, I guess this is the reason, right? If Bunnyhopper's never in a terrible spot, why even play the Risky Skipper number 2?
Agreed. Yeah, completely.
Agree. It's just checkmate, pretty much, whichever way you look at it. So why have that? Why play something you don't even have to? And it might be better next.
Yep. Completely agreed. He's just examining the possibilities of how much damage he could do, quote, guaranteed, at least within the range of bombs exploding and going face.
Oh, okay. For 1? Okay, that's pretty good for Jarla, actually. Wow. But now the Risky Skipper, you can... Yeah. Oh yeah, there was a few ways that could have really happened, especially with that live wire lance. That is going to be the game, and it's another 3-0 sweep, our second in these 2 semi-finals. Bunnyhoppor is going to take down Jarla and move on to the finals against Silvername. Wow, honestly, I did not expect these 2 semi-finals to go this way, and I'm not even talking about whoever won. I'm just talking about them being both 3-0s. Pretty crazy.
It was, yeah, and I think that was an extremely well-played series of Hearthstone from Bunnyhoppor's side, and also about as well-played as it could have been from Jarla's, but he just didn't really have the juice. He wasn't really given the tools with which to actually craft anything spectacular out in those games. My questions will remain with his love of Galakron Warlock over the last few weeks, but I'm not going to draw any conclusion from those couple of games that he played, because I really do think he took a couple of bad beats in those first 2 games of the series, and then you're left facing down needing to 3-0 Warrior. Like, sorry, that's just not going to happen. Like, the win rates in Grandmasters even will just suggest that would be a statistical anomaly if you were able to do that.
Exactly.
So Bunnyhoppor now has the chance to, again, perhaps label himself now as the most consistent player over a long period of time in the European region, with the way some of the other results that we've seen over the weekend have gone. Bunnyhoppor can perhaps take the crown here, but on the other side is the enigma wrapped in a riddle, wrapped in a mystery that is Silvername, the man with whom all things are possible, Raven.
Yeah, 100%. It's going to be an exciting final, whichever way you look at it, and I can't wait. But we are going to have to, as we go to a quick break while we set up our next match and final match of the day. It's going to be the finals. The winner gets to go to championships. It's going to be Bunnyhoppor versus Silvername right after this.